What is up, email geeks? This is the Email Design Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This is your home. We're going to come in, just geek out over all things email design, development, and marketing. We are your hosts for today's program.
I am Jason Rodriguez.
And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into some new functionality in Litmus around ESP syncing, some cryptocurrency in email, a really cool interactive email. So a lot of cool stuff on the way, but we're going to kick things off today talking about an interactive email using SVG and SMIL, S-M-I-L. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Jason. I've never heard this before or was even aware of this with SVG. So I was really excited that this article from Style Campaign was released. So many good resources over on the Style Campaign blog. Highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. So what they did was, and we've seen SVG in email before, but SVG actually has interaction built into it, which I didn't realize, which I'm just going to call SMIL for now. So SMIL or SMIL. Yeah. GIF, we're getting into it all over again. But SMIL, and I didn't even know this, so it's really cool. So they wanted to make an interactive email entirely using SMIL. So no checkboxes or radio buttons, which you typically would use to have to create an interactive email. So this was a really awesome write-up of the whole process and the whole experiment and how you can do it. One of the easy implementations they got into it was using this slider concept. And the only downfall and downside to this is that with SMIL, you can only have one button do one thing. So it can only point to one location for an event, if that makes sense, which is one of the limitations. Similar to checkboxes in a sense, radio buttons grouped together have a bit more logic associated. So what Anna found out as a hack is that they can simply duplicate the styling of multiple elements in the same position to then sort of create this slider styled effect so that you're just duplicating the content, which is unfortunate because it adds a little bit to the weight, but that's how you can sort of duplicate the same styling, but still have multiple actions going for a slider type of thing, which is really cool. And so there was really 3 levels of support that they built in. So the first was the baseline experience or typical tables in CSS. Then the second level was if you just had a static SVG support. So this would really work well with some webmails like Yahoo Mail, Outlook.com, and then even, like IE, which won't support SMIL. And then the third level of support would be the fully featured SVG interaction. So for the fallback, it really just sort of looks like that static image. It's a little slightly different of a layout, which is a completely acceptable experience. In my mind, this looks like a really good fallback to have. And you can sort of see it here as I go through the clients. You're going to see it basically work with the fully responsive SVG version with SMIL working in the WebKit versions, right? So your Apple Mail, your iOS Mail, Outlook for Mac, and you're going to see the fallback essentially everywhere else, whether that's a fallback for an SVG or you would use a hard-coded inline image. But SVG support is really, really good right now. I mean, if you just go off the market share, 51% based on the latest market share stats in December from Litmus Analytics. So this does have the majority market share support, which is really nice to see if you wanted to play with it. And typically you're just going to be targeting Apple Mail and iOS Mail for the most part, and it's going to work well for you there. And her version was a little bit heavy on the performance side just because it used inline SVG, but she did use a little bit of complex artwork. You could have less artwork and it wouldn't necessarily be as performant or as heavy on the performance side. So there's definitely room to optimize there. And then I guess just one other thing I wanted to point out was on the implementation for this. I'm looking for the paragraph now because I thought it was important. The SVG, again, it's going to be displayed via an external CSS link, which hooks up to a PHP script. And the PHP script is going to check the user agent string of the device, and then it's going to determine whether or not to serve up the SVG. Anna and Style Campaign So Anna and Graham, they're very big sort of on the device detection side of targeting to implement hacks. You'll see somebody like me who does a lot more of the HTML, CSS targeting with hacks, but they like to do a lot of user agent stuff. So I thought this was really interesting, Jason, really fascinating. And pretty cool to note that there is another way to do interactive
Yeah, I really
email
like
if you
this.
wanted to.
It's something I remember hearing about, some sort of animation system for SVG, but yeah, never heard what it was called, or definitely haven't heard how it's pronounced. But it's cool to see that it's essentially this internal animation framework that's all attribute driven on SVG, which is really cool to see. Like you said, SVG support's pretty solid. Doesn't work everywhere, but you can always get fallbacks going. One thing I really liked about this, though, and SVG in general, is that since it's all code, you have access to that code via CSS. So Anna kind of points out that they use that access to do some responsive SVG stuff, which I think is a pretty cool technique. So there's definitely some benefits to using SVG in SMIL, but I think that the support's not fully there, even though we can have those fallbacks, and it's a little bit crippled by the fact that you have to kind of hack around that one event per element type limitation in SMIL. But definitely a really, really cool technique. And, she kind of points out in the wrap up that while, it's not really good for advanced stuff and really complex layouts, it's pretty cool to mess around with. And it definitely has, it's another tool that we could use to enhance our email campaigns or try out different things beyond just checkbox and radio button hacks for email, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and it makes doing layouts like this nice hero section, which adds a lot of perspective. It actually makes it easier to just implement this using SVG, right? Instead of having to even just rely on CSS styling for divs. So it's nice because it gives you that flexibility to do a bunch of stuff like this. And I can imagine brands, especially ones that just pop to mind, like brands like Spotify could.
Yeah, totally.
Love being able to
so definitely
this.
An amazing technique, and another great kind of pioneering article from Style Campaign. I hope they never stop because I love their articles and they do some great work. So definitely check it out. We'll put the link in the show notes. We've been covering some Thunderbird news over the past few episodes or over the past year. As Thunderbird's been getting more traction, it's been finally getting some development resources to update it, bring it up to modern standards. But there was this great post over on the Monorail blog talking about how they were enhancing the Thunderbird visual theme. So apparently what happened was they posted a dribble shot of this proposed, like, what if Thunderbird could look like this really modern, elegant, really good looking, attractive layout for an email client. And the community around Thunderbird actually went ahead and built that into a Thunderbird theme. So you could download this, called the Monorail theme. So it's completely re-envisioning what Thunderbird looks like. But the cool thing, it's just kind of right now a community-driven project. But the cool thing is the Monorail team actually has been talking to the Thunderbird core team to see if they can bake some of this stuff, some of these ideas into the official Thunderbird theme. So I think that's really good indication that Thunderbird, again, is really developing their email application. They're really investing in Thunderbird and working with the community to, enhance that default visual style, bring it up to modern standards, all that stuff. And the Monorail team is actually doing a survey right now. So you can go to this website, which we'll link to in the show notes, take the survey on Thunderbird, how you use it, what you'd like to see in it. And they're going to take that information, kind of redo this theme, build in some new ideas based on that community feedback, and then share that with the Thunderbird core team as well to try to get these updates into Thunderbird, which is cool to see this much activity around a really classic email client that's kind of been stagnant for a long time, but is still used by, I think they said in the article, around 23 or 26 million people. So it's good to see that kind of investment back into Thunderbird.
Yeah, and it bodes well for the prediction that Thunderbird could possibly crack the top 10 in market share this year. So interesting to see, and I thought it was a nice theme. It definitely modernizes Thunderbird a little bit. So yeah, interested to see if they come out with more themes, introduce any more new UI.
Yeah, we'll have to check back up and see what the results of the survey are when they publish them. All right, going to talk about some community jobs. We love giving those shout outs to companies that are posting on the Litmus community job board. And more importantly, kind of make the word known about the job board for you email geeks. Anybody looking for a new gig, just go over to litmus.com/community/jobs. 3 new jobs up there. One from Retail Me Not, if you're in Austin, Texas, or want to live in Austin, Texas. One of my cousins lives there. It's a great city. Email developer for Retail Me Not. So doing lots of cool things with email, working with 30 million plus subscribers, 600 million plus web website visitors, lots of traffic to Retail Me Not. Apparently, they have a great open vacation policy and love giving you free food. So if that's your jam, then definitely check out that position. It's full-time in Austin, Texas, email developer for Retail Me Not. Inbox marketer up in Guelph, Ontario. Our Canadian friends in the north are looking for an email deliverability expert. So if you're into marketing, that kind of agency setting, but want to focus on email deliverability, then definitely check out this role. Again, it's full-time up in Canada. That's for inbox marketer. And then finally, JDRF, which I believe is in New York, is looking for an email production coordinator. And JDRF is actually an organization that's helping to fight type 1 diabetes by funding research, which is pretty cool. So if you're interested in that, then check out their email production coordinator role, which is full-time for 6 to 12 months with potential for a full-time hire after that. So kind of like contract to start with, but you can move in a full-time role, and it's in New York City, which would be pretty badass. So definitely check that out. There's more jobs at litmus.com/community/jobs. So check it out. Oh, yeah.
Also follow @jobs4email on Twitter. It's an automated posting feed of all the new jobs. So if you're looking for a new job, just follow @jobs4email. It's great Twitter. I love to follow just to see all the updates of people updating, looking for jobs, companies looking for jobs rather. It's fun to see. And yeah, Retail Me Not. I feel like I use that all the time whenever I'm using stuff online. I'm just like, ooh, is there a deal? Let me check. Retail Me Not, especially
that makes
Domino's,
so much sense.
Have to admit. Okay. Yes, so much sense. So we're going to get back into the news here in a second. Just want to let you know, you can check the podcast out at emaildesignpodcast.com. All the show notes and links. So everything we're discussing right now, you can catch it all right there, along with all past episodes of the podcast. This is episode 90 already. So you got your work cut up for you if you haven't been following along. You can tweet with the hashtag Email Design Podcast. Jason and I are following along there. If you have any questions you'd like to have featured on the podcast, or just interact with us on Twitter as well, just catch us there. Also subscribe on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes. Get the podcast as soon as it drops. And we have a 14-day free trial of Litmus. So you can go to litmus.com/giftcard and put the coupon code podcast. And you're going to get a free 14-day trial of Litmus, which is the full email creative platform. It's the best way to build, test, and analyze your emails. So you're going to be able to use tools like Litmus Builder to build your emails, test them out in over 90 different email clients we have supported now. So no matter where your subscribers are opening, we've got you covered to make sure that it's looking good before you go and hit the send button. You spend a lot of time creating an email campaign. You don't want it to be broken in Outlook. You don't want it to be broken in the Gmail app and have bad experiences for your subscribers where they then unsubscribe, report you as spam. You don't want that. You want to be a rock star. So definitely use Litmus to help, build, test, optimize that whole workflow. There's even analytics built in so you can see what email clients users are opening from, how long they had an email open from. It's just really, really snazzy. So again, just go to litmus.com/giftcard, input the coupon code podcast for a free 14-day trial of Litmus. Granted, Jason and I are biased as we've been working here for a few years, but we were both customers before we started. And I can't imagine, whether I work for Litmus or not, living without Litmus and doing email. It just would be impossible. So special thanks to @Litmus app on Twitter. Check it out. And that sort of brings me to some new functionality that's in Litmus that we just want to point out. So we've had ESP syncing around since last year, or really, I'd say a couple years, like towards the end of 2016. But we had a bigger relaunch of it last year with more support for more ESPs. And I am happy to say that today now we've actually added another one, which is a pretty big deal. We've added support for Marketo. So this was the number one feature request we had since we updated with the last round of ESPs. So now when you're inside of a Litmus Builder document, like I am here, you can just go to the Sync to ESP button in the top right. And once you've connected your account by clicking Add New ESP and selecting which ESP you'd like, in this instance, it'd be Marketo, there's just a little one-time authentication process you can look at our documentation for to do, but then it'll show up as a connected ESPs. You can just come down, click on Sync to Templates. It's only going to take a few seconds. It's going to take the HTML, upload it over to the ESP. If you have any images uploaded into Builder, we're also going to take those images, upload it to the ESP, and reroute rewrite those URLs for you automatically. So you don't have to do that manual process of loading images all at once and then copying and pasting each one into the document. We're going to automate that for you. And then once it's done, again, it just takes a few seconds. It's going to return that link directly to the template back into Marketo. So you can just click, open it up, and it's loaded right in there. So super fancy. We only have support for templates at the moment at Marketo. We're sort of blocked on the API side of them supporting campaigns. Hopefully we'll be able to get to that soon. But this is nice because it's supported for ESP syncing and the extension as well. So once you're inside the ESP and you're editing any kind of draft, you can easily go in and just activate the Litmus extension, and you're going to have the ability to test and run full Litmus checklists right inside of Marketo. So very excited. I'm very excited to have Marketo and get people using that. ESP syncing is something that people have been loving, as well as the extension. It's really just nice ways that reduce the friction in the process on sort of the design and development to the deployment side.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome to see more ESPs kind of making their way to syncing. And I think it's going to make a lot of people's lives that much better. So definitely check that out. Let's move on to cryptocurrency hitting the email world. It was bound to happen. It seems like this is the year, this is the time for it. But there's this really interesting article over on Medium, Byteball, which is smart payments made simple, essentially a cryptocurrency wallet and payment provider, talking about using text coins, which is, I guess, a type of cryptocurrency I hadn't heard about until now, but using those in MailChimp to send out mass payments for people. So it's pretty actually simple kind of technique. The hardest part, I think, is actually generating those text coins. So they actually have a couple of tools, a couple of JavaScript tools to generate and get those text coins, which apparently text coins are essentially just 12 words strung together to make that coin, which is kind of cool. But you can use their tools to generate these text coins, and then they're talking about loading them into MailChimp and then kind of automating the process of sending those out to your subscribers. So nothing really revolutionary. They're essentially taking a subscriber list out of MailChimp, bringing that into something like Excel or Numbers, updating that CSV to have a text coin column, and then uploading that back into MailChimp. Then within MailChimp, or really any other ESP has this similar functionality, you can essentially create new data fields for your subscribers. So it'll upload that column. By default in MailChimp, it won't really recognize that as an actual column in your database for your subscribers. But you can create that. So in this instance, they name that data field text coin, and then they create a custom merge field for a merge tag for those text coins. So then in their HTML template, they can just reference that text coin merge field or merge tag, and then it will dynamically pull in that subscriber's text coin. So when they send out an email campaign, each of their subscribers will get the appropriate text coin assigned to them, where they can then redeem that text coin and get that money that that text coin represents, which is pretty cool to see. So again, nothing really revolutionary. It's pretty basic subscriber data management, but really interesting to see this use of MailChimp and merge tags to use in the cryptocurrency world. So I'm curious to see if we see more things like this, cryptocurrency and email kind of wedding themselves together to kind of push things forward.
Yeah, crypto. Shout out to all the Bitcoin holders. Sorry that you're not doing so hot this week. I know it's been a bit of a downturn, but yeah, I think obviously, apart from the whole crypto thing, I think this was interesting to show that it's a cool use case of getting payments into the inbox. And this was something we just talked about recently on our predictions, so that's why it sort of piqued my interest. So being able to just see, again, brainstorm different ways of how you can sort of manage transactions of payments in the inbox. I thought this was a fascinating use case. And like you said, it's pretty much just hooking up information through a CSV file. It's not that hard. Obviously you got to have that whole service that powers it behind, but just as something as simple as CSV and merge fields.
Yeah, it was definitely cool to see.
Power, which I thought was
yeah,
really
there's so much you can do just with subscriber data and those merge tags. So I hope we start seeing more uses like this. It's pretty cool. All right, moving on to our email of the week. It's finally here. Super Mail Quest. So this was something that Aaron Simmons has been working on for quite a while. There's been a lot of talk about it over in the Email Geek Slack channel and around Twitter and stuff like that. but he finally released this Super Mail Quest. So if you do want to sign up, it's supermailquest.com. But it's this interactive, awesome adventure game inside of an email. So your goal is to defeat the Warlock of Outlook Mountain. Very appropriate. But it's this kind of click through adventure, this great pixel animation inside of your in your inbox. So this is a really advanced look at how you could do interactive emails. Not yet. But really cool if you want to get into some interesting interactive techniques and building really advanced kind of logic throughout this game, then definitely take a look at it. The code is pretty intense. There's about 2,500 lines before you even get to the HTML. So that's all CSS. That's all those animations, all those checkboxes, all that stuff that goes into building out this email. But if you do want to get your head wrapped around something really complex in interactive email, then Super Mail Quest is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and this is really cool. It's pretty much just using animated sprites. So again, I mean, at the core of it, all it is just a whole bunch of checkboxes, radio buttons, and then using CSS animation with background image sprites. So I thought, again, it's really, really complex because it puts together this whole game. But again, at the core of it, it's really not that bad. But the amount of time it probably took to put together all of these graphics was really, really cool. Yeah. Obviously, all of the styling, and then just actually taking the time to sit down and do out all of the logic for this is what would have taken a long time. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Aaron for doing this. This is really cool. Would love to see people continuing to experiment with this. And I love projects like this. Again, I get that they're not real world, that this is just sort of a concept, fun demo thing. But these are things to where you can learn the most, right? So I guarantee you, Aaron has a complete grasp of how interactive email works now after having sat down and built out this project, right? So I encourage other people to do similar things like this and then to share it, blog about it, share your process, what you were surprised by, what was hard for you, what you learned. All of those things, I think, really benefits the community. So that's why we wanted to showcase this, or at least a part of why I wanted to help
absolutely.
showcase
Side
this
projects
too,
are a great
really
way to just
like
learn new concepts, share that with the world. And if you write about it and share that with the community, then all the better, because people can learn right along with you. So yeah, great job, Aaron. Again, we'll link it in the show notes and you can check it out there.
Alrighty, that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Reminder, emaildesignpodcast.com for full show notes and links. Everything we discuss is right there. You can also catch all past episodes of the podcast. And for new episodes that drop, make sure you subscribe on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes. Hey, leave us a nice 5-star review on iTunes, would you? We'd really appreciate it. Tweet along with the hashtag Email Design Podcast. And do not forget a free 14-day trial of the amazing Litmus. Just go to litmus.com/gift card. Coupon code podcast. All right, we'll see you next week, Email Geeks.